All right. Answers by Guess. What up there, Guess?
Hey,
All
late
right,
night.
recorded shows. Late night. Got to get the coffee in. I don't know if you know, but it's an accrual world. You get it?
A cruel world. Yes.
It's an accounting joke.
Yeah, that's what I
Sorry.
was gonna say.
Yeah,
Business joke.
I'm getting past bad dad jokes now. It's going into bad business jokes. All
Yeah.
right, guys, remember, like us Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Patreon. Always look for those hashtags, answers by guess, at ABGFF. Bye weeks: Jacksonville Jaguars, Miami Dolphins, Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Quite a few players, man. Quite a few players that you would start on a weekly basis.
Definitely.
But let's talk about that Thursday game. I don't know, man. Green Bay, it's just such a roller coaster ride with these guys.
Yeah.
Christian
That's,
Watson, though, man, 5 touchdowns.
all right. That's why I said I wasn't getting too excited about that Dallas win. I mean, they had to come back in that one, and they just it's terrible play calling. Um, 4 minutes left in the first half, and they run the first two drives. We had the ABG check on, or the first two downs. It's just ridiculous. But it is what it is. He had Watson. He's had what? I mean, he had one or two catches towards the end, but before that, he was like 6 catches for 5 touchdowns over his last 6 targets, pretty much. And he had some miscues. Lazard had some miscues. Cobb looked good, but we've seen this out of Cobb before. It's like his old body is good, and then we'll see next week break down a little bit. Um, it is what it is. I mean, what I really liked about that is Traylon Burks and Robert Woods got going, and Tannehill back. I know he played last week too, but that's what Tennessee is missing. And when Tannehill plays like that, and the run game they have, and the defense they have, this is like what happened last year. Tennessee started to get hot towards the end of the year. They were able to pass. They might be a little better off now without AJ Brown because Traylon Burks plus Corey Davis, I think, is better than having just the one wide receiver. So
Bobby Trees, not Corey Davis.
yeah, that's what I'm at. It's late. Forgive me, folks. And Chiggy gets his 30, 40 plus catch just one
One
game.
catch.
That's it. He looks great doing it. They just don't throw it to him any more than that. Although he did get the very first target of the game. It was a bad pass by Tannehill. I was like, all right, he's going to get going. Nope, just one more target the entire game. And of course, it was 30 plus yards.
So funny, man.
Hooper got the touchdown. It is what it is. Keep on rolling with Watson. You might as well at this point. Red zone machine. We were having the ABG chat discussion, and I stand by what I said. I don't think he's the best wide receiver on the team. Wide receiver. Maybe he has the most raw talent, but that's it. He's raw, but that's good for fantasy because all you need him to do is use his big frame and his speed to get touchdowns, and he got 2 of them. So
The miscues that you were talking about with him, like you can see the frustration in Aaron Rodgers' face. It's like you're supposed to take 2 steps forward and catch the ball so that you can run an out route or something like that. It's like he's not doing those little things. And you could just see, like, I constantly felt like he was rolling his eyes every time he threw it at Watson.
yeah,
But except for the touchdowns. What I did like, not to interrupt you, but Lazard had a bad drop. He went right back to him the next play. Watson had a bad drop. He went back to him right the next play. And that's what you got to have to do is have that some kind of confidence saying, you know what, I'm not going to ignore you. I'm going to actually feed you again. Let's make it happen.
yeah, but Rodgers is just lacking like the drive, the urgency. He just seems to be just going through the motions out there. Down in the game at the end of the first half, down in the game at the end of the second half. It just seems like he just doesn't seem fiery. Like it's not in him, and it's disappointing as a Green Bay fan. And maybe it's time to do what we say: sit down, old man. I don't think Jordan Love would make them any better at this point in time. I really don't. But maybe next year with an off season, or they draft someone or whatever. But moving on because they suck. The G stands for garbage.
All right, let's go on to the first game here. Chicago Bears at the Atlanta Falcons. Chicago coming off of a close loss to the Lions last week. Good call by you. You called the Lions. Um, it's pretty funny. Like Justin Fields, I'm crazy to start him over Josh Allen, probably, but I just feel like I could. The way he's been playing, and he's making everybody else around him better. Khalil Herbert now out, so let's talk about the running back situations over there. And then from the wide receiver standpoint, obviously a lot of people down on Claypool not getting the love, but still only a couple games there. Are we going to actually see a change this week with the wide receivers? And on the flip side, Atlanta lost to Carolina. Their offense is again back to running the ball and not running very well. Can you feel okay starting an Atlanta Falcon player? I know Drake London got the touchdown last week. Pitt was kind of down again, but could we look for the ebbs and flows with those guys?
Yeah, this one has some potential to be pretty high scoring, back and forth on the turf in Atlanta. That's where Justin Fields grew up. Um, he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, I believe, because of Auburn, I think, or Georgia, one of them. The colleges. Where did Jake Fromm go? Was it Auburn or was it Georgia? I think it was Georgia, maybe. But they passed on Justin Fields, and this is where he's from. You got the Michael Vick factor, so he's coming in running like Vick of old. Yeah, so this I think has potential to be back and forth. I Something about Fields. I own him in the ABG league. I was happy to have picked him up before the ascension because as I mentioned on the show, felt it coming, saw it coming, and I needed a quarterback because I lost Trey Lance, I lost Tua, I lost who the heck's Tua's backup, um,
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater. I lost him in game, so I was like, oh well, I lost Daniel Jones in game, and I was just like, okay, well, let's go with Justin Fields. He looks good to go, and it happened. But I get worried every single week because he's running so much that he's going to get hurt. I hope it doesn't happen for everybody using Fields. I hope it doesn't happen because he's not going to stop running, and especially against Atlanta, especially in the ascension he's on. They have a tough schedule coming up after this game. They still have the bye week 13. So this could be like the last really big Fields because it does get a little bit tougher, and you're going to have to bench him obviously when they're on a bye. But he's going to continue running. No Khalil Herbert, so Montgomery's going to be a good play. Komet was a little banged up this week going into practice. Komet is like having a Christian Watson type of run. He's not really catch many passes, but when he is, they're huge touchdowns. So keep rolling out with Komet, especially against the Atlanta defense. Claypool, they're not using a lot. But like I said with the Claypool signing, I said I think he elevates everybody else because it's just another good body to be out there. Uh, Demir Bird, is this a revenge game for Demir Bird? You know, because
good factor.
Right. So they have offense. I like Mooney in this one. I see no reason not to play Mooney going against the Falcons. So I think that they will be able to move the ball, and in return, because of it, Atlanta should be passing the ball in this one. But we've seen Atlanta down 3 touchdowns, still running the ball. I think Patterson is going to have to be more involved in this one. You're going to have a lot of people because of Patterson's down week last week that are going to put him on the bench. The Bears, for whatever reason, even though they got rid of Roquan, I know linebacker, but linebackers help to stop the run. Getting rid of Roquan, they've actually gotten better against the run. So Atlanta should be passing in this one. So I kind of have a feeling that Kyle Pitts is going to have a good game. London's going to need to be involved. And they're going to have to use Patterson out of the backfield. I think this one probably could end up being one of the higher scoring games of the week. And when you just look at these two team names, I mean, throw out the Justin Fields factor and just think about the last 5 to 10 years of existence, aside from the Matt Ryan team that 28-3 lost in the Super Bowl, they should have never lost. You look at these two teams, and you're just like, stinker, right? Especially the past couple seasons.
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be back and forth, game in the 30s. So get your Bears and get your Falcons in the game.
All right. It's funny. I think that Vegas is going over under is 49.
Okay. Well, yeah, so they think the same thing. That's
All
pretty
right.
high.
That is pretty high for that game. All right, let's go on to the next one here. Carolina Panthers at the Baltimore Ravens. Panthers again playing the Falcons last Thursday on the mini bye here. But what are you thinking as far as this offense now? Like, I'm confused. Baker's the guy. Uh, does that make DJ Moore better? Does that make Marshall better? How does the running back situation go? Hubbard didn't get the ball very much. It was a Foreman game last week, but all they did was really run the ball. Now that Baker is going to be kind of fully back into the full swing of things, do they open it up more for the receivers to be able to catch it? On the opposite side, Lamar Jackson, banged up, but seems like he's going to play. Andrews banged up, but seems like he's going to play. Gus Edwards is coming back. What does that do to Drake? And Duvernay has been a roller coaster. Can we feel the ebbs and flows also on this kind of game on a Duvernay that this Carolina Panthers defense is very good, like very good, better than they should be.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, Lamar's got a little bit of sickness going on, but Harbaugh, I guess, said that he's going to be fine. Coming out of the bye, Lamar Jackson historically runs a ton the game after a bye. I don't know why, um, but as a Lamar owner for a few years, pay attention to the matchups and the situations. He hasn't been running very much this season. Would not surprise me if they came out and had a few extra designed runs for him. Now, this game, you would suggest the game flow. I mean, this we talked about the last game. We talked about. You look at these two names and you look at the season trajectory where it's going. You're saying, "Oh, Baltimore is going to win this game by 20 points." So that's a risk that you run into as a Lamar owner, as a Duvernay, even an Andrews. You got to hope that it's early. Gus Edwards should be back in this one. Um, you hope that that's early, but he would keep running even if they're winning. Demarcus Robinson, you can't. My boy D-Rob, you can't really play him. Prochet, you can't really play him at this point because they should be able to run the ball. And if Andrews is back, I think I've been saying it for a couple of weeks, last show on Tuesday as well. You run him and Likely on the field at the same exact time, and then Duvernay is the only guy that you really mess with. So I think that you're going to see Lamar use his legs a little bit more in this one, just because for whatever reason after the bye, that's what sort of happens with Lamar. He usually has one game. He hasn't really had a game where he's had a ton of rushing yards. He hasn't been rushing. Carolina, all they want to do is run. Foreman's had a few good weeks. 2 of them were against Atlanta, 2 out of the last 3 weeks. I think you're going to see a lot more Chuba in this game. Chuba was dropped in a lot of leagues. I dropped Chuba, but that's mostly because of space. But he was coming off an injury that kept him out a week, and they were using Blackshear and another one of the rookies. Can't remember his name. But I think you're going to see a little bit more Chuba in this one. It's going to eat a little bit into Donta Foreman's workload. And I think Baker coming back, as much as I want to say it helps them, I get a little nervous. However, you have Baker that knows Baltimore. Played against them twice a year the first 3 years of his career, 18, 19, 20, 21, so 4 years. And Baltimore knows Baker. And you asked, does Baker help DJ Moore? I think Baker helps Marshall a little more than DJ Moore. You saw as soon as Baker came into the game a couple weeks ago when Walker went down, he was looking right at Marshall. Marshall had a great end of the game. That's where he scored the touchdown. I actually am so glad. We'll talk about this game when we get to it because I have Marshall as my 4th wide receiver in a league where I'm decimated at wide receiver. And Wandale is my 3rd wide receiver. And I'm kind of glad that Wandale's a little banged up because I kind of just want to put Marshall in because I feel like Baltimore is going to be able to score at will against Carolina. And I feel like Carolina's going to have to play catch up and not run like they want to do. And Baker's going to have to throw a little bit. And you can beat Baltimore through the air. They're really good against the run. They can't stop the pass that well. So I think DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall are fine plays in this one. It wouldn't surprise me if Laviska Shenault scores another big touchdown. Seems like every week or two he pops up and busts a long one. I could see that happening here, without a doubt. So if you are in super dire need, Laviska Shenault, all he's got to do is catch a screen from Baker, and he can bust it loose. I think that's going to happen this one. We'll call Laviska Shenault big touchdown. First call of the week.
All right, I'll write that down. Was it Spencer Brown? I think that was the kid, right, from the rookie.
I don't. Maybe
They have like 138 running backs over there.
Yeah, they're moving them all, but I think you're going to see more Chua this week. Foreman's still the number one, but they're going to have to. You're going to have to pass the ball a little more to the running backs, and Chuba has another week of health under his belt.
I like it. All right, let's go on to the next one here. Cleveland Browns at the Buffalo Bills move to Detroit. You saw the news everywhere. You're seeing the pictures everywhere. I even posted on our Answers by Guest group. Obviously, nobody wanted to play any Cleveland Browns or Buffalo Bills. Now, is it just everybody plays? Do you just put everybody in against it? I mean, this Buffalo Bills defense obviously is good, but they've been giving up points lately. Same thing with the Cleveland Browns. Their run is better than their secondary. I'm sorry, their run defense is better than their secondary. But can we actually start everybody in this game? I'm just going to say it that way because to go through everybody, I think it's just easier that way.
Yeah, I feel like this game, the field, I think would have been fine. They're saying the snow is supposed to stop by 1 p.m. Sunday. But the problem is they would have had everybody from this morning until Sunday morning clearing the snow out of the stadium. They would have had to try and figure out how to get all the business side of football, all of the people that get flown into the games to this game, not even just the fans getting to this game, shoveling themselves out of their snow in Buffalo, but getting all the broadcasters and the vendors and everybody else that has to travel to stadiums each week. I think it was a logistics problem. The field, I think, would have been bare. But I think this benefits us for fantasy because now you're in a dome. I think the field would have been fine. If it had a little bit of snow, I think the offenses would have been fine. But now you're in a dome. And now it's like, okay, we know what happens in the dome. Speed, 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 right? So the Bills are going to be playing in Detroit 2 weeks in a row. Cleveland, are you going to do something with Kareem Hunt? I think this is a smash spot. And I hate to use that term. Jesus, last week I was saying let's go. This week I'm saying smash spot. Kareem Hunt, but you can't even trust Kareem Hunt. Because for whatever reason, last week they should have used him. But last week, Chubb kind of stunk too. They fell behind in the game, but then really neglected to get anything going through the air. Chubb can catch passes. Hunt can catch passes. They didn't even target him. It was just last week was terrible. So you throw that out. Now you're going against the Bills. Bills are pissed off after last week. So you got Cleveland, who's trying to stay above water. Buffalo is trying to avenge their loss from last week. Two teams looking to attack each other, and you're doing it on a dome. DPJ was good last week. I think DPJ will be fine this week. Cooper's been a little quiet for a couple weeks now, so I think he's fine to go. Harrison Bryant finally caught his touchdown last week. He was really good last week. I thought he would be good 2 weeks ago, but last week was when it was. Not 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago because they had to bye. So I'm talking, Halloween night. Gosh, time is flying.
It's Thanksgiving. It's mind blowing.
Right. So I think that the 5 main Browns, you can go ahead and roll with them because you're going to need to against Buffalo. I think Buffalo's angry. They're going to be able to move the ball. Gabe Davis had a huge week last week. Very seldom does he string 2 good games together, but you can beat Cleveland through the air. I think Diggs is a little PO'd. So, obviously you're going to get him out there. The running back situation is a bit in the air because they're saying they're going to get Hines more and more going as he gets more acclimated to the offense. Yet they are getting James Cook more acclimated at the same exact time. For whatever reason, they don't like Singletary. So,
Even though he
Josh,
had the 2 touchdowns last
yeah,
week too, which is
yeah,
crazy. He's actually been
yeah.
productive.
So I think being in Detroit, I think it saves us for fantasy just because even though I feel like the field would have been fine, we get a plus because we're inside, we're in a dome, and it's faster. And you have the Bills that are angry, the Browns that are desperate. Get your Bills and your Browns in there. I don't see any downside really to any except for Gabe Davis, just because we've seen him disappear in games, and Kareem Hunt because he has disappeared for months
I don't know
for
why they
no
don't like him
reason.
over there, man. He's so good.
For no reason. I don't know. But this sets up as a Kareem Hunt game. And listen, I'm playing Pacheco over a Kareem Hunt, and every time I look at it, I'm like, I think that's a mistake. But I can't bring myself to make the swap.
Well, it's not Sunday yet. Good call on DPJ last week, by the way. Definitely was the main guy. So, all right, let's go on to the last one here for this video. Washington Commanders at the Houston Texans. We called the Commanders saying that they're more than likely going to beat Philly. It just seemed like it was the script that would work. Scary Terry and Heineke are great. Wentz is healthy, but they're sticking with Heineke. Both running backs scored touchdowns last week. Am I comfortable starting? And can I even start a Heineke? I know he's not getting a ton of yards, but against this Houston Texans defense that can be moved on. They play better than what their numbers look like, but again, could be a higher scoring game. On the flip side, it's Pierce. Eno Benjamin now picked up by then. How does that affect the running situation? And Nico Collins with the touchdown seems to be getting the target share now. Could he become the number one now over Cooks?
Yeah, well, for as far as Houston goes, Collins has been emerging. Cooks was banged up. Cooks was pissed off against about not being traded, but he actually got his first full practice yesterday that he's had in probably a month. Um, so I would say that yeah, he's probably emerging because Cooks won't be there next year. So rightly so. We've been waiting a long time for Collins. I think both are solid plays this week. Pierce, of course, we'll see how they use Eno. He's been there less than a week, but they should get him involved. They really like Rex Burkhead for whatever reason, but Eno is obviously more talented at this point in his career. Last week they sat Brevin Jordan, which is just really weird. But it is what it is. So Texans, I just found out today that Ron Rivera and Lovie Smith don't like each other, or one of them is really mad at the other one. Something about early on in their careers. I don't remember who it was. I think maybe Ron Rivera doesn't like Lovie Smith because he feels like Lovie Smith like hindered his ascension through the coaching ranks. Listen, if that's the case, I mean that's a little ridiculous because Ron Rivera, you've been a head coach for more consecutive years than Lovie Smith has. I mean, Lovie Smith was off for a few years before he went back to the Texans, right? Wasn't he the Bears and then the
Yeah, and
Texans?
then
But he had
that's
a
it.
break in between.
Yeah.
Rivera went right from Carolina to Washington with no hiccup until whatever. I mean, you're grown men. Give it up. But so that's like another
Detail of
thing in this.
Nicholas.
So these two teams want to like get at each other, I guess, because the head coaches have some sort of quarrel between the two. Um, but yeah, you got to play Pierce. But I am worried about Eno. You and I had this conversation because this team's going nowhere. So the idea is, well, Benjamin's there, and he's actually young and um, has potential, whereas Burkhead is old and his best years are behind him. We can preserve Pierce a little bit because this year nothing's going to happen with us. We're 1-8-1 or whatever we are, 1-7-1. We're not going anywhere. Pierce is our cornerstone. Let's bring in Eno Benjamin. Let's take 25% of the food off his plate and not get them too fat for next season, so to speak. So as a Pierce owner in 2 leagues, I'm a little worried to close out the season. Rob, you made a power move getting rid of them, which I applaud you for. It was a good move. So, but this week you got to play them. Washington, I think a DFS power move this week is to use Gibson and Brian Robinson in the same exact lineup. And I sort of have talked about this maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, drafting this sort of way, where we talked about, you know what, just go into the season, just be like, okay, and it hasn't, these two at least, wasn't too good this year because Dylan has sucked, but draft Aaron Jones and Dylan, and some weeks just play them both together. Draft Zeke and Pollard and just play them together. Some of the guys, it hasn't really worked. Draft Chubb and Hunt and just play them together. Worst case scenario. I think this week, Gibson and Robinson play them together. I think it's a gold mine this week because you could run all over Houston. Heineke's not going to have to do too much. Unless Houston and Davis Mills and the 2 wide receivers, and if they actually activate Brevin Jordan and they use Eno and Pierce out of the backfield and they score with this Washington team, who, by the way, will be getting Chase Young back. So if they can score on this and keep this game close and a little back and forth, I feel like if they can't do that, McLaurin hits a little bit of a downtick because they could just run. Dotson in his second game back didn't do anything last week. It was clear he was on a pitch count. He takes the setback. He'll have to wait another week for that. Samuel probably will run because they use him as a running back. But I think the two power plays in this one are the 2 running backs. Washington should be able to run all over Houston.
I like it, man. It's funny. I was actually trying to trade for Washington Commanders defense for a little bit, knowing that Chase Young was coming back. I was looking for Hawk, and I think it was Commanders. Somebody needed a quarterback. I have Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson, so I pretty much have the same player. I was like, hey, you know what? The person didn't want to take it, but these are the kind of games that Washington, they do have a tougher schedule more to the end of the year, but if you can kind of pick and choose your spots, I have Baltimore defense as well. If I can kind of pick and choose, I like Washington kind of being that second defense on the way toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
All right, guys, always look for those hashtags. And follow us everywhere, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Patreon. We appreciate you, and we'll be back for our second video in 2.2.
See ya.